King Midget. King Midget. Wow. My first car. Bought when I was 11 years old. Now, this is not the car that I bought when I was 11 years old, but it is just like the one, even the same color. My granddad lived in Seminole, Texas at the time. When I was 11, I lived in Levelland, and we went to see my granddad. And down at the end of my granddad's block was the dump ground, and I loved to take my BB gun and a bunch of BBs and go down there and shoot rabbits and mice and rats and anything else that would crawl. I even shot a few cats. I hope there's not any cat lovers in the audience here, but I shot a few cats with a BB gun too. All right, I used to go down there all the time when we go see my granddad. And one time, coming back to my granddad's house, I was walking on the opposite side of the street of his house, and there was a garage door partially open. And when I walked by, I just happened to glance in that door that was partially open, and I could see what I could tell were some tires and part of a fender of something that looked like it was a little car. And so I'm kind of a curious guy, and I was when I was 10 or 11 years old, too. It got me in trouble sometimes, too, probably. But I remember getting down on my hands and knees and crawling over to that garage door and looking in there, and sure enough, I saw a car in there, but it was an itty-bitty car. And that itty-bitty car actually became a name that all my grandkids called this car, the itty-bitty car. Now, let's talk about the one that was in Seminole, Texas. I looked underneath there, and I could see this car. I got off my knees. I run to my granddad's house, and I said, "Papa, that house down the block on the other side, there's a car, a little bitty car, in the garage there." He said, no, Lonnie, that's a golf cart. And I said, no, Papa, it's not a golf cart. A golf cart's got a place where you put them golf clubs in the back or on the side or something like that. It's a car. It's like a real car, but it's a little bitty. And he said, I don't think so. I think it's a golf cart. I said, let's go look at it. Let's go look at it. Well, my dad was sitting there. They were probably watching a baseball game on TV. And they turned the TV off, and we walked down the street. And sure enough, he looked underneath the the car door a little ways, and the garage door, and he could see something. He said, I think you're right. I think that's like a car. And I said, Grandpa, I'm going to go knock on the door. I'm going to talk to that man that owns this car. He said, Lonnie, you don't need to go talk to him. You don't know anything about that. I said, but I'm going to. I'm going to talk to him. I'm going to find out about it. So I went up there, knocked on the door. This gentleman comes to the door, and I said, sir, my name's Lonnie Shelton. This is my granddad. That's my dad. And I want to know about that little car you got in your garage. He said, well, son, that's called a King Midget. He said, two guys come back from World War II, and they both lived in Athens, Ohio. And when they came back after the war, a lot of scrap airplanes were built out of aluminum, and they started buying scrap aluminum that was from the war effort. It was in airplanes, and they, in their garages in Athens, Ohio, they never built a factory. They were building these little cars out of scrap aluminum that they bought from scrap airplanes, and taking those aluminum and building a car. And they never sold one in a dealership. These guys contacted Popular Mechanics Magazine and made a deal with Popular Mechanics Magazine that if they would let them sell their little cars called the King Midget in the Popular Mechanics Magazine, that they would give a portion of each sale of the King Midget to Popular Mechanics Magazine, and they wouldn't have to build a dealership. Hey, pretty neat, ingenious business plan. Those guys started building those cars in their garage in Athens, Ohio in 1946, and they built them all the way to 1969. And I have a 1958. Now, the one that I got when I lived in Levelland from my granddad's place in Seminole, I let my little sister drive it, and she wrecked it. She had a friend of hers that lived across the alley and run into a Dempsey dumpster that was being serviced by a dump truck and hit the front end of my King Midget car, caved the whole front of it in. And I'm just going to tell you, I'm 73 years old, and when I think about that, I still cry. I still cry about that King Midget getting crashed in the front end, and it totaled it. But you know what? I also say a prayer. Neither of those two little girls that was in that car got hurt. So there's no seat belts. There's no roll bars. There was no alarms. There was no buttons that told you this hadn't been hooked up or that hadn't been done. And the good Lord watched over those two little girls that wrecked that car that day in Levelland, Texas. Now, the one I've got right now, one night I was looking through some stuff on eBay, and I found this particular car. I found it on eBay. It was in Indiana, and a guy had restored the car. He passed away. His son didn't want it. He put it on eBay. I drove to Indiana, loaded it on a trailer. First, I met him in the parking lot of a Walmart store. We took it off of his trailer, and I got in it. And I didn't fit in as good when I was 11 years old, probably. But I do remember getting in it, and it felt like I was 11 years old, 10 years old again, in a King Midget. And I still have that car. Most of the kids, well, all of my kids and all my grandkids have learned to drive a car in that car because that was something that they adopted. That was their itty-bitty car. And we've used it in parades and opportunities here in Pampa today, and I still have that car, and I still can walk out and look at that and kind of squeeze into it, and a little tougher to get back out of it, but it still brings lots and lots of memories of my kids learning to drive and me learning to drive. And oh, by the way, I drove that car for 3 years in Levelland, Texas, all over town. Never got stopped by a policeman because I knew the hand signals, left, right, stop. I knew what to do. I knew how not to speed. And every policeman just gave me kind of a nod of the head, and I never got stopped one time in 3 years. So we did live in a different time back then where people were a little more understanding and maybe relied on a lot more than common sense. Common sense is a good virtue, and law means to be followed, but common sense should always be looked at too. So, King Midget, 1958 model, brings back lots and lots of memories.